right, today what I'm going to do is mind map a nonfiction book. And I'm going to mind map it from scratch. A lot of times people have a presentation, and if I'm being honest, it's a little bit of a challenge for me. And I also want people to understand, how can you take your ideas, whatever is in your brain, and how you can put it to paper, right? Particularly what I'm going to talk about today is creating digital content. And I'm thinking about a book, but you can also do this with a course or a podcast. You can do this with other digital content. So we're going to mind map. I'm going to start with a blank page. I was going to write it, but I had some technical issues. So I have a Canva. I have I have Canva open, and I'm just going to see what we can do to kind of put a book together based off the ideas in my head and the ideas in my brain. So I'm going to share a screen with you, and we're just going to get right to it. We're going to use I'm going to put my book down, and we are going to use a little bit of the truth method from this book to get the bare minimum done. And then later on, I might pull up a slide or a presentation or something like that so I can go through some other concept. But we're going to mind map a book and kind of go from there. So let me share my screen. Okay, so first things first, I probably should have been more prepared, but we need to mind map an idea, right? I could have done two things at once. I could have put together my own mind map for a particular book, but that's okay. So we're going to use the truth method. And the truth method, if you want to learn more, you can find videos on the page, or you can go get you a copy of my book. But the truth method is it's a methodology that I came up with, and I use that to help people put content together. In this particular case, what we're going to do is we're going to put together a book. So truth is an acronym. It stands for it's an acronym for truth, and the T stands for target niche, right? So we're going to start by finding out who our particular target niche or particular audience is, right? Let's just say I'm going to go with some text over here, and I want to say my target niche is real estate entrepreneurs. Okay, and the reason why I have to think like this is because real estate entrepreneurs have different problems than mothers, and mothers have different problems than aunts, and aunts have different problems than uncles, blah, 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 right? So you have to start with who whenever you're demonstrating or teaching something. The who, the person matters. And I have a video where I talked about how much that matters on the channel. You can also, again, go and get a copy of the book. We go into detail in that in one of the chapters in the book. Now, so we finished T, right? In this particular case, I'm thinking about real estate entrepreneurs, but what about, so now we need to move on to the next letter. And the next letter in the truth method is R, and R stands for respond, right? There's two ways you can respond. You can respond with video, or you can respond with AI is what I recommend. I recommend you respond with video or AI. You respond to 5 questions that your particular target niche or target audience has. Okay. So for the sake of mind mapping, what we're going to do is I'm going to go grab some more text, do body here, and I'm going to do question. Okay. And I'm just going to I'm going to do question one here. And then I'm just going to duplicate this a couple times. We're mind mapping, like just to get the ideas out. So question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. Okay, let me bring up the highlighter for you. So I have 5 questions here, and we're going to start there. You're welcome to adjust this, but I want to start with 5 because I find most people get caught up when they try to put too much into their book, their content, their course, their podcast, video, etc. So question number 3, we're going to do that. Question number 4, we're going to do that. And then we're going to go with question number 5. Okay, so we're mapping this out. This is our mind map so far. And so far what we have is we're targeting real estate entrepreneurs, and we're going to target them. We're going to address them by addressing 5 common questions that they have. So we're starting to formulate our book, right? So the questions that we have via video or course, this is our core content. And if you need to add more, go ahead and add more. Maybe you got 12 questions, maybe you got 7. Maybe there are 7 questions. Who knows? Okay. But we're starting to formulate a book, right? So what I want you to think about is, so that's truth, right? We're responding with the 5 questions. And for the sake of this mind map, to make things a little bit simpler and easier to count, I'm going to change things around a little bit. So I said question 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 5 in front of the question, right? And I'm going to do the same thing with 4. Or just so you can kind of count along with me is what I want you to see. 3, 2, 1. Okay. And I'm just going to delete this. Delete that. Delete that. Okay. So we have 5 questions, and these 5 questions serve as the core content for our book or our course. Okay. So we're mind mapping. We have 5. And again, you are welcome to change this. Maybe you only got 3 questions, or maybe you have 20 questions that you need to address or answer. I recommend 5 because it's a handful. 5 is not too overwhelming. It's not too much. It's not too little, is how I want you to think about it. Now, that's the core content of our book or course. What do we do next? Once we address these questions, once we respond, what we need to do is we need to add in. We're going to move on to the next letter. So inside the book, I'm reading from the book. There is, I'm talking about the truth method. And the next letter from the truth method is the letter U. So U stands for unpack and unite. Now we're going to unpack, and what I mean by unpack is we're going to unpack the book with the introduction. We're going to let people know what's coming up in the book. And when I say unite with the conclusion, we're going to wrap up the conclusion by telling people what they just learned inside of the book. So U is for introduction and conclusion. We're going to unite with the introduction, and we're going to unpack with the introduction, and we're going to unite with the conclusion. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate these. So I duplicated question 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace the words, and I'm going to put a 6 here because 6 is the number 6, right? And I'm going to go with introduction. Okay, so I'm going to let people know what's to come in the book. I'm going to duplicate this as well, and I'm going to call it a conclusion. Now, the reason why I use these numbers is because I want you to see how this becomes a product, right? We started with 5, but it starts to grow. It starts to grow. So far, based off this mind map thing, this idea that I'm talking about, which I'm calling a mind map, but it's just a whiteboard. Based off this thus far, we have 7 chapters, or we have 7 modules for a course. Okay, we address core questions, and then we did an introduction and a conclusion. The next thing that I typically recommend in the truth method is we're going to jump ahead to the next letter, which is T. T stands for tie in your call to action or your sales letter. In the case of a book, I like to come up with a sales letter. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate this. And when I say tie in, what the tie in means is we're going to tie that in. We're going to make sure we include call to actions. We don't want to just give information that people they're not able to act on. So I like to include something very specific, a sales letter. And a sales letter doesn't mean you're selling anything. It just means you're selling an idea, as an example. So you can sell the idea of them going through the entire book. You can sell them the idea of going to visit your YouTube page. You can sell them the idea of actually buying something. And it's up to you what you want your sales letter to represent or what you want your sales letter to say. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call this a sales letter, and call to action. And we're going to put that in front of the book. And the reason why we put that in the front, we put that before everything, is because we want people, most people don't finish anything. There's a small percentage. However, we want to give people the opportunity to accelerate as fast as possible and as soon as possible. So we write in this sales letter, this call to action, and we encourage them to do a very specific thing, just in case they don't get through the entire content of our book. We want them to connect. Maybe we want them to sell it for an email address, a newsletter, who knows? But we're going to put that in, and we're going to give them the opportunity to do that right away. Now, I'm going to duplicate this, And we're going to come up with our next call to action. Our next call to action, it will be similar, and we could change the goal. We can change the objective, right? Maybe in the beginning of the book, you wanted them to join your email list, but maybe by the end of it, you're ready to tell them to schedule a consultation. Okay. So that's our next call to action according to the truth method, right? And you can see here, this is why I use the numbers. You can see here, we started with nothing. We're addressing real estate entrepreneurs. And now we have 9 chapters based off the content that this mind map that we have here, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. So we already have 9 chapters for a book that's far based off this mind map. And there are some other things we can add into the book, such as one of my favorite things to think about immediately off the top without me referring to the slides. I'm going to find them while I'm speaking with you, is call to action and testimonials. Okay. So that is something that you can add in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate our call to action down here, and we're going to label this number 10. And for number 10, I'm just going to put case studies, testimonial. Okay. And maybe, so a case study to me, a case study is kind of self-explanatory. You explain a case where someone has success, or you can explain a negative case where someone didn't have success that's not tied to you, or you can talk about opportunity where someone didn't come to you or leverage your services, or someone did something wrong. But those are case studies. And testimonials, right? One of my favorite things to do is include a bunch of testimonials in anything that I do, so people can see that it's not me necessarily, right, saying what I'm doing or how great I am, because honestly, I don't want people to talk about how great I am. I just want people to get their results. Okay. So case studies and testimonials, this becomes 10, right? And I'm working with a client right now, and she's going out and she's getting several testimonials, and she's getting long form case studies where she's interviewing people that she's helped. And what she's going to do within her book is she's going to turn each one of those case studies into a chapter in her book. So we have point 10, but you can duplicate this several times. Let's just, for the sake of this example, let's just say we're going to do 3 case studies, 3 long form case studies. So we're going to do 11, and then we're going to do 12. Okay. So these are examples of chapters that we can add in. So we started from a blank slate. We started from a blank slate, and now we have up to 12 chapters for a book already. And this does not yet include all of the many other things that we can add, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. So let me pull it up. Okay. So this is a presentation that I have that I've done several times. And I just want you to see it. These are different things you can add to your book once you have gotten your book finished and complete. Once you've done that little mind map that I talked about, once we get that finished, this little mind map here, we have 12 chapters based off just an idea of nothing. Once you've done that, you can start to add some of these other things, okay? And just really quickly, so you can see me go through this. These are other things you can do. This is what we just went through. We went through the 5 questions. We answered those questions. We solved problems. One thing I want people to understand is that your book shouldn't be about your life. It should be about helping people solve a specific problem. That's why it's okay to do questions and answers, okay? Your book grows fast. You can see we started from nothing, and we have 12 chapters based on what we went off of, okay? People are going to buy for what you do for them, and they're going to stay because they like you. So solve a problem for them first. Add value by solving a problem. All right. These are other things you can add to your book. I talked about testimonials, but dedication, you're welcome to add that into your book. That can become, it doesn't necessarily become a chapter, but it can become a page. Acknowledgement, same idea here. It doesn't have to necessarily become a chapter. It's normally a page. Instructions. You can put clear instructions on how you want the user to read the book. Maybe you have a book where it's not a cover to cover read. Maybe it's a reference book. Maybe it's an action-oriented book. Maybe you want them to take implementation. Really good example is for my book, Real Estate Marketing Implementation. I told people don't read it from start to finish. What you really want to do is you want to go apply one chapter at a time, and then you want to apply the action items. Okay. A table of contents, that becomes a page in itself, right? That's one page. Forward, this is something that you can add to the book. Someone you respect or admire, or you can even include your own forward inside of the book. A preface is something we haven't added to the book yet. So you can already start to see, I'm giving you ideas of all these different things that we add in. I call this section that we're talking about here the vegetables. It's the stuff that people don't get too excited about, but it's necessary. It's not necessary, but it can really help your book. So I call it like vegetables. Here we go. We still haven't added an introduction, or we did add an introduction inside of the book. So the fruit, which is the back matter, you can add resources. Inside of my book, it's a resource out to the podcast, resource out to the YouTube. What's next? What do you want them to do next specifically, right? So we didn't add that into our mind map, but tell them what to do. Write a page or a chapter on what they should do next. Should they download a resource? Should they access your course? Should they schedule a consultation? Should they leave you a testimonial? Just tell them what to do next. Write about the author section. This can become a page. It can become a chapter. It's up to you. All right. Other things that you can add to your book. We already talked about call to action, case studies, but you can add stories, right? So based off the mind map, we hadn't included any stories just yet. Examples. What are some examples that you can include? Your own examples or other objective and known examples you can include inside of your book. Quotes. I love this. I normally put quotes on their own page, like one page, but this is something that you can add to your book. A personal letter. Maybe there's something personal you want to say. You're welcome to add that inside of your book. Bonus chapters. If you purchase any copies of my books, you'll see there's a ton of bonus chapters inside of the book that helps you achieve specific results relevant to that book and the processes that we teach. Pictures. We hadn't added pictures. Pictures fill up and take up quite a bit of space, infographics, and just many different other things. Okay. So just to recap, you got your core content, which is the questions that we address. You can see that there. Then we got the front matter, which we talked about. You can see that there. We've got the back matter, conclusion, what's next about the author. And then we have other things. These are all other things that you can add to your book.